from ABC News. This is ABC World News with Diane Sawyer.
Good evening. Listen again for yourself to that moment today when Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak announced to Egypt and the protesters he is not going away anytime soon. Those were cries of anger after 17 days in the streets. Though Mubarak did say he would turn over some of his powers to the new vice president, and at the same time warned foreign countries to stop the pressure. So what does this mean for America and the world tonight? Our team is covering it all, and we begin with Terry Moran, who is right there at the square in Cairo. Terry.
Diane, tonight this square behind me is still filled with tens of thousands of protesters, and you can sense their anger and frustration all the way up here. This entire country today was taken on a wild ride of careening emotions and almost unbearably intense political drama. Among the vast crowd in Tahrir Square tonight, the reaction to President Mubarak's speech was instantaneous and furious. Even as he was still speaking, the crowd took up the one-word fundamental demand of their revolt. Erhal, leave, leave. But Mubarak made clear one thing: he's not going anywhere anytime soon. I will be responsible for changing the Constitution, he said in a televised speech to the nation. He added he would stay in office until September to assure stability and a smooth transfer of power, he added. That and Mubarak's announcement that he was delegating some of his presidential powers to his hand-picked vice president, Omar Suleiman, it all came as a crushing disappointment to the protesters. Then Vice President Suleiman took to the airwaves to try to reassure the country that change was really underway. Let's work on this together, he said, adding, people of Egypt, go back to your homes. That's not likely. In Tahrir Square, they were no longer listening. Many were marching, some headed for the presidential palace, some for Egyptian TV. These were the latest chaotic moments in a wild day in Cairo. Earlier, an amazing moment that seemed for a time today to mark the triumph of the revolution. General Hassan El-Rueini, one of the country's highest-ranking officers, made his way to a platform and spoke to the crowd. Tonight, he told them, all your demands will be met. Everything you have said will come true. As he left the square, I managed to ask him directly if the revolution had succeeded. It is over, he told me. And for the rest of the day and through the night until Mubarak spoke, there was ecstasy in that square.
We born again in Egypt.
You're born again?
Yes.
Cairo tonight is delirious. People get the news that the army has made its move, and they're ecstatic. This is a democratic ecstasy here. It's thrilling. Even while Honim, the 30-year-old Google executive whose online organization of the protests and his 10-day detention made him a national leader, even he thought they'd won.
It's the dream come true. You know, the dream became true, and you know, whatever we've been fighting for since the 25th of January is now being realized.
Mubarak seems to have dashed that dream for now, and it all leaves Egypt in confusion and chaos and danger. And tomorrow, Friday, the Muslim Day of Prayer, another gigantic demonstration is scheduled. They're calling it, Diane, a day of martyrs.
I want to go ahead right now, Terry, thank you, down into this night of turmoil, because we have word Jim Sciutto is down there among the protesters right now. He's on the telephone. So, Jim, tell us what's all around you at this moment.
Well, Diane, the square is still alive with people. From the very moment those words left President Mubarak's mouth, they immediately were vowing to continue the protest, vowing not to leave this square. And you can see them now. They're drinking tea, they're cooking, they're preparing for another night sleeping out here and a long fight. In fact, they're already making plans for a large protest in March tomorrow. But earlier in the day, just the contrast was dramatic. The high hopes falling down to earth, Diane, almost with an audible thud. The crowd was expecting nothing less than a new Egypt to begin with the president's speech, but they were disappointed. There was first confusion as they, like all of us, tried to interpret what the president was saying, then disappointment, and then some anger. One woman told me it practically gave her a heart attack not to hear him finally go. And then a group of young men surrounded me, chanting, pulling on me, asking why America wasn't forcing him out. Such a contrast to earlier when really there wasn't a sad face in the crowd, despite there not being an inch of space to spare. The crowd filled with people. It was a very calm day, and that changed the moment the president didn't give them what they wanted.
Well, Jim Sciutto, thank you. And I know you'll be phoning in throughout the night as you stay with the protesters there. And our Christian Amanpour, who led the coverage from Cairo, is back now. We watched this together today, Christian. What are your sources saying tonight about what's going to happen next?
Well, this is clearly a conversation now that's going on between the president and the people. He directly addressed the people in Tahrir Square. They had directly roared back to him. I'm being told that he's given away most of his powers to the vice president and that he'll stay to shepherd through the constitution. Key is, will the army intervene? I'm told no, they will never intervene. Will he stay? That's what he wants to do and not be run out. They want to end this with dignity. Plus, they know they don't have the time right now to have a credible election if it was held right now.
So giving away some of his powers is not having an effect if he is still there visibly. But what are you hearing about the rest of the region and the tremors that were sent out today?
Well, you can imagine no one is looking at this more closely than Israel, right there in the middle of this. And Israeli government has not spoken out until today. I just spoke to Ehud Barak, the defense minister, and he started by telling me Egypt is not Iran.
The role of the rest of the world is to tell them honestly, but behind closed doors, on secure lines, we are ready to be there beside you if you move concretely and coherently toward change. We respect your need to avoid it falling into the hands of extremists. We understand that you need some time. The real winners of any short-term election, let's say within 90 days, will be the Muslim Brotherhood.
So he's saying that, again, time has to be given for them to be able to mount a credible reform and democratic process. He says that for Israel, democracy coming to that part of the region can only be good.
Israel saying give them time to get it credible. Okay, thank you, Christiane. And we both thought today, watching President Obama, that he seemed to be expecting big news from President Mubarak this morning. So was this the news he expected? Was he surprised? And what about Mubarak's insistence that pressure from foreign powers is not going to move him? Let's get the White House reaction tonight from Jake Tapper. Jake, what about all this?
Well, good evening, Diane. I have to say the chaos and confusion that so permeated throughout Egypt made its way to the White House today. You're right, President Obama seemed jubilant when he made remarks earlier today talking about how we were witnessing history. Although he did not want to get ahead of what President Mubarak was going to announce. And later, of course, came the news that President Mubarak was not taking President Obama's advice, and including opposition leaders, and he was not taking other concrete measures, lifting the emergency law immediately, as President Obama has asked him to do. So I have to say, even though the White House right now is poring over Mubarak and Vice President Suleiman's statements, trying to figure out what exactly went on tonight, there is no concrete reaction. They are still trying to make sense of it, just like the crowd in Tahrir Square.
It says a lot, Jake, that they're still waiting to react to what happened tonight. Our thanks to you, and I want everyone to know that the full team will be reporting again on Nightline later on tonight with a wrap-up of today's events.